You're exhausted, your body is tired, your eyes are heavy. But your mind refuses to stop. You lie down, hoping for silence, and instead everything gets louder. Thoughts you didn't choose. Conversations you already had. Problems that don't even exist yet. And the more tired you feel, the harder your mind seems to run. Why? Why does your brain keep going? Even when you have nothing left to give? Hold that question, because the answer isn't what it seems. Problem deep dive, it usually starts in quiet moments. Late at night, early in the morning, or in the small gaps between tasks. Moments where nothing is happening outside. So everything begins happening inside. You replay something you said. Not because it matters that much, but because your brain insists it might. You analyze tone, timing, facial expressions. You try to reconstruct the exact moment. As if accuracy could give you relief, but it never does. Instead, one thought leads to another, then another, then 10 more. Until you're no longer thinking about the original moment, you're thinking about what it means, what it says about you, how it might affect the future. This is where overthinking shifts. From thinking to identity. You're not just asking, did I say something wrong? You're asking, is there something wrong with me? And that question doesn't have a quick answer, so the brain keeps searching. You carry this into your day. You sit with people, but part of you is elsewhere, running simulations, predicting outcomes, preparing responses. Even in simple conversations, you're not just listening. You're scanning, adjusting, monitoring yourself in real time. It's exhausting. Even when you want to, people tell you to just relax, to let it go. But they don't see what's actually happening. Because from the outside, it looks like thinking. But from the inside, it feels like something else entirely. It feels like pressure. Like your mind is trying to solve something urgent, even when there's no clear problem. And this creates a quiet conflict inside you. One part wants rest. The other part refuses to allow it. So you exist in between, tired but alert, drained but unable to shut down. And over time, this starts to shape how you see yourself. You begin to believe, I'm just someone who overthinks. This is just how I am. But that belief hides something important. Because this pattern didn't come from nowhere. It was learned, and more importantly, it was reinforced. The real question is not, why do I think so much? The real question is, why does my brain believe it needs to keep thinking even when I'm exhausted? To answer that, we have to look deeper. Reframe, what if your overthinking isn't a failure of control? What if it's a form of control, not conscious control, but protective control? The kind your brain uses when it doesn't feel safe enough to relax. Because here's something most people misunderstand. The brain does not prioritize comfort. It prioritizes survival. And sometimes those two things move in opposite directions. So when your mind keeps running, even when you're exhausted, it's not ignoring your need for rest. It's responding to something it believes is more important. Safety, prediction, preparation. Think about it this way. If your brain believes something could go wrong, it would rather keep you awake and thinking, than risk being unprepared, even if that something is vague, even if it's imagined, even if it never happens. Because to the brain, uncertainty feels dangerous. And thinking feels like the only way to reduce it, so it keeps going, not because it's broken, but because it's trying to protect you, in the only way it knows how. But protection without limits becomes exhaustion. And that's where we need to look at the mechanism. Psychological mechanism. Deep in your brain, there's a system designed to detect threat. At the center of it is a small structure called the amygdala. You can think of it as a smoke detector. It scans constantly, looking for anything that could signal danger. When it detects something, it sends an alarm. Your heart rate changes. Your attention sharpens. Your mind becomes more active. Now here's the important part. The amygdala does not measure truth. It measures possibility. If something could be a threat, it treats it like one, which means a real danger and an imagined one can trigger the same response. A car speeding toward you and the thought, what if I embarrassed myself earlier, can both activate the system. Not equally in intensity, but in pattern. So when you're lying in bed and your mind replays a conversation, your brain isn't just remembering, it's scanning for threat, trying to find mistakes, trying to prevent future problems. Now layer this with another system, the default mode network. This is the network that activates when you're not focused on a task, when you're resting, doing nothing, or trying to sleep. For many people, this network drifts into daydreaming, creative thinking, loose, calm thoughts. But for chronic overthinkers, this network becomes a problem-solving loop. Instead of resting, it searches, analyzes, reconstructs. Why? Because over time, your brain learns something. Thinking reduces uncertainty, maybe not permanently, but temporarily. And that temporary relief is enough. In behavioral psychology, this is called negative reinforcement. A behavior is repeated because it removes discomfort. So every time you overthink and feel even a slight sense of control, your brain says, "This worked. Do it again, and again, and again, until it becomes automatic." Now add one more layer. Your brain has limited energy, but when it perceives threat, this is not about forcing your mind to stop. It's about teaching it something new, gradually, consistently, in a way the brain actually understands. 1. Name the state, not the thought when the spiral begins. Don't argue with the thoughts. Don't analyze them. Instead, step one layer back and name what's happening. This is my brain trying to find a threat. Or simply, this is anxiety. This works because of affect labeling. When you label an emotional state, you activate the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for regulation. At the same time, activity in the amygdala decreases. You're not stopping the thoughts. You're changing your relationship to them. Example, you're lying in bed replaying something you said. Instead of diving deeper, you pause and say, "My brain is scanning for mistakes right now." That small shift creates distance, and distance reduces intensity. Overthinking feels uncontrollable because it has no boundaries. So the brain keeps it active at all times. The solution is counterintuitive. Schedule your thinking. Choose a 10 to 15-minute window during the day. Let your mind run freely. Write everything down. Analyze if you want. Then close the window. Outside that time, when thoughts arise, you gently postpone them. Not now. Later. This is based on stimulus control. You're teaching the brain, there is a time for this, which reduces the need to do it constantly. Example, at 6 p.m., you sit and write down all your worries. At 11 p.m., when thoughts return, you remind yourself they already have a place. Overthinking is not just mental. It's physiological. Your body is often tense, breathing shallow, heart slightly elevated. And the brain reads this as, something is wrong. To interrupt the loop, you don't start with thoughts. You start with the body. Slow your breathing. Extend your exhale. For example, inhale for 4 seconds. Exhale for 6 to 8 seconds. This activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which sends a signal back to the brain. We are safe. Example, you're in bed, mind racing. Instead of solving anything, you focus only on slowing your breath. Within minutes, the intensity shifts. Not all thinking is harmful. Some of it is useful. But overthinking often disguises itself as problem solving. So ask one simple question. Is this leading to an action? If yes, it's useful. If no, it's a loop. Loops feel productive, but they go nowhere. Recognizing them breaks their power. Example, you're thinking about a future conversation. If you can prepare one clear point, do it. Then stop. If you're repeating the same scenario, it's no longer solving. It's circling. This is the deepest layer. Keeping small promises to yourself. Following through on simple tasks. Because every completed action sends a signal. I can trust this moment. Example, you tell yourself you'll step outside for 2 minutes, and you do. That's it. It seems insignificant. Your brain learned that thinking equals safety. Your amygdala stays alert. And your behavior reinforces the loop. But by design, think of your mind like a system with a stuck setting. You've been trying to silence your mind, but your mind was never the enemy. And maybe that deserves a different kind of response. Because the goal was never to stop thinking completely. The goal is to reach a point where thinking is no longer driven by fear, where silence doesn't feel unsafe. And repetition, and patience. But it's possible, not because you force it. Slowly, quietly, through experience. What is my brain trying to protect me from right now? Because in that question, there is space. And in that space, change begins.